Okay, first notable story. I had a baby shower on the weekend. God bless all my friends and family who supported us. Len, I was looking for your gift. I didn't see it. It must have got lost in the mail. So
I'm your gift. Every
among
Monday I'm here to chat. The gift that keeps on giving.
my wife probably actually wants that more than anything you could have bought us. You know what we got? So we're unwrapping the gifts yesterday, and there's like a bunch of baskets, right? Baskets of like diapers and little knickknacks that'll help you with the kid. And
yeah.
Great stuff. In two of the baskets, I guess, we got 2 varieties of booger maintenance and control tools. One was a booger picker. I guess you just it's like a little plastic thing you can put in your kid's nose and like help the kid get boogers out when he doesn't know how to do it or when she doesn't know how to do it. And the other one, Len, is a booger siphon with a photo on the front of the package of a happy mother with what looks to be a hose in her mouth and a happy baby with what looks to be a hose in his nose. And so I put this on Twitter. I said, listen, I just had this baby shower. What the hell is this thing? You know how many people responded and were like, you don't think you're going to need that, but it's going to be a lifesaver for you. 100%. Everyone, Simone Belanger, Plate Liquor, all kinds of people who are like, listen, this thing seems gross, but you're going to need it for sure.
You know what? I'm
going to try it. I'm going to try it on myself on air. That's the only way to see. We're going to stream it maybe this week. If we don't get a guest, Len, I'm going to open that thing and I'm going to just suck my own boogers down the way that Ricky siphons gas from people in Sunnyvale Trailer Park. I'm going to do it for a full hour on stream. That's
do it old school. Don't even bother. Just let gravity work its way.
Just let it run into the kid's mouth.
How was things done in the past, right?
Like, I don't know.
It's worked, and
we have strayed so far from God's light at this point, Len. Booger siphons. Come on. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? How is that even? That wasn't on the registry. Look at all the people in here. That'll save booger siphon stream. Those things will save your sanity. Needed to get sleep. That people in the chat, like they're supporting.
Clearly,
new parents think this is a good idea. So I don't know what to make it.
And you know what? I never use it. We never use it, and make that for what you think is just. Yeah.
So great. Oh my God. BTC Priestess. I've been nursed to my dog's anal abscesses. Sucking out baby boogers is nothing. The woman who comes to cut Moose's nails offers to do his anal glands. He doesn't have any problems with that yet. He's still a young pup, but maybe at some point. Other thing I bought, Len, Kenzie bought me for my birthday, a PlayStation Portal. You heard of one of these things?
No.
Basically play your PlayStation on the run. Your 5 on the run. It's like a screen with a graphics card and a Wi-Fi adapter baked in around a controller. I tried it today. Works pretty good. All the guys that I know who are gamers like I am, listen, I take a lot of shit for gaming, but I don't really do anything except the podcast, work out, play video games, and do social stuff with my wife like once or twice a week. And so like
you're going to start reducing that because you have 24 hours a day.
I know.
So
my plan is to just keep this thing in the nursery so that when the baby's sleeping, I can stay in there and give my wife a break and either read to the kid. If the kid's asleep, play some video games on silent, whatever. Right. Keep everyone sane. A lot of new fathers also big on portable games. So all this to say that a productive weekend, but one that has left me, Len, with a lot more questions and answers. A lot more questions and answers.
Yeah, you say you seem like you're mentally scarred. You know, hang in there, Joey. It's only going to get better from here.
Great.
Maybe not.
Good. That's your first notable story, anyway.
I think it's a good segue into another great notable story is that the jobs report that came in this past week, and this, was an absolute doozy. And if you look at it. Like just on the whole, they added like 140,000 jobs, right? Like you just look at this, it's like, man, it's not too bad. 140,000 jobs were added. Doesn't sound all that bad. But then you like just about anything, you fucking start scratching the surface, and you realize there's shit underneath. And the deeper you dig, the worse it gets. So before we even talk about this,
you're talking about the American jobs numbers.
Yeah.
These are insane. Yeah, they're insane.
That's exactly. And we have to just preface everything that and recognize the fact that we had downward revisions for June and July. So with that being said, we have now the table set. Everything's been revised sharply downwards. August comes in 140,000 jobs have been increased or created for the economy in the month of August? Really good? No, because part-time employment, this is as per CNBC, part-time employment increased 527,000 jobs, while full-time employment fell 438,000 jobs. So you do the math, it's 120,000 jobs-ish. That's been created as it's an insane amount of jobs that are lost full-time. It's going in the wrong direction, and it's continually going in the wrong direction. This is not an economy that's strong. This is not an economy that's booming. This is an economy that is flatlining, and it's going to be tits up not too long from now. And the sad reality of this is happening now as we lead up towards the election. We are now a month and change away, almost 2 months away from the election, and this stuff is being reported now. It's not going to help out the incumbent, because let's be honest, the Vice President Harris is the pseudo incumbent here. It's only going to add fuel to the fan the flames for Trump, to make him say, look, shit's going pretty bad. How can anybody look at this and say, fuck, things are going well? It ain't. When you're having jobs like engineer jobs, with doctor jobs, like whatever, they're being cut because the economy is hard, because there's less people coming in to use your services, because it's more costly to run your businesses, and people are doing Uber and fucking waiting tables, shit like that. That is not long-term growth.
I got an even bigger banger for you here.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just in August, okay, foreign-born workers plus 635,000 jobs.
That was next on the thing. Go on. This is
insane. Native-born American workers minus 1.325 million jobs. So 1.3 million native-born Americans lost a job in August, while 635,000 foreign-born workers gained a job.
How?
This is not
a lot of migrants.
This is not a right-wing conspiracy show. Okay, we don't dabble in conspiracy. We try and speak to the data. We try and speak to what's in front of us. I know you do for sure, Len, because you're gathering the stories. But I try to read a ton of stuff, including the bank letters from Derek Holt and guys at TD and CIBC and Scotia. You name it, right? I subscribe to the QTR blog. I subscribe to a bunch of blogs that I read regularly, right? And I'm in Telegram chats where this data is being shared. None of these guys are conspiratorial. They're writing to produce content that they think makes sense and present a viewpoint on the data. One of the things I see a lot is this idea that, you know, native-born Americans, Canadians, whatever, are being replaced by foreign-born people. This is a broadly accepted right-wing, you know, sort of extreme right? I won't say far right, but I will say extreme right conspiracy. How are you supposed to contend with people who think that when you look at data like this?
There's nothing. This is black and white in terms of it's
very clear.
Punching you in the face. Now, the only thing I would say about this, the only thing, because it's saying native-born Americans versus the rest.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So it could theoretically be, there could be some people in the rest category that have been in the United States, say for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and part of that. So there are going to be people, not to say that they have any more value or less value. I'm just trying to say, at least they have more skin in the game.
There's wiggle room on the fringes, right? To make the data, if you dig, not as bad as it seems.
Yeah.
But what I don't see is anyone from the administration making that case.
There's no way you could take this and massage it and say,
one of the things in the notes for some of these tweets is that the data is misleading because prime age employment among native-born workers is increasing. It is factually incorrect to say that these numbers represent 1.3 million native-born Americans losing their jobs. They're retiring. I sort of sympathize with that, but the idea, you know, if even a third of those people are retiring, you're still down, you know, 1 million jobs, while foreign-born workers are gaining jobs. And 30% of the people who lost jobs in August didn't retire. We're in the middle of a recession, right? Like the numbers are weakening everywhere. The data shows this. The Federal Reserve is about to respond to this with a rate cut. So people who are saying that this is based on retirement or demographics, no. And by the way, what does retirement mean? Retirement could mean what, Len? Here's your golden parachute. Take care. See you later. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. We're not paying you another 2 years. Here's your severance package. You go now. That's retirement. But it's not the retirement that you wanted, for sure. And it's not the retirement that's going to get you to the day you die, for sure. And so all this data, we used to say this all the time when we first started doing the show, because I think we were like one of the only shows talking about the data like this. It's a shell game. The numbers are meant to look a certain way to enforce an action that's coming from a government agency, in this case, the Federal Reserve. Oh, it's not government. Yes, it is. The data is only meant to support a narrative that means that these guys can act a certain way. There's no other reason to pretend that this data is good or bad or in between. Like you said, it's very black and white. Foreign born plus 300 or plus 635,000, native born minus 1 million. If the strongest case to be made that this data is cooked is that we didn't include retirements, I think this is really, really painting a picture that's going to add fuel to the fire of the lack of cohesion in society. How else can you paint this, right? There's no other way.
Well, and before the election, we have at least one more month of data that's going to be reported for the month of September. But the
revision will come in November, right? For the October.
You don't even need to revise it.
Well, they'll revise it somehow. It's never
for sure they will.
This data is not good, but the real data is going to be worse than this.
And so exactly, that's a good point. But in terms of this, it's really bad. And this is going to be, for September's numbers, is going to be even closer to the election date.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if October's numbers are going to be released in time for that. Not that this is really going to make a decision for people, but it's just going to hammer the point that it's not going well. And the United States economy, for a long time, we've been hearing things are going things are great, everything is rosy, and rate cuts are looming. Rate cuts are going to be coming because they just want to fucking get things moving in the right direction.
Oh, my understanding is that rate cuts come when things are going well. I heard from the finance minister. No,
it's going to, well, in the United States, it's going to be at a cost. They're going to lower rates, and inflation will probably start going up just because of the fact that we have this humongous debt, $35 trillion. It's costing them $1 trillion annually to fucking just service this.
Yeah.
And the only way to do this is to add more debt.
They're adding $1 trillion every 3 months to the debt now.
Yeah, every 100 days. It's another trillion. $100 trillion and every 100. That's insane.
People see this stuff and they just pretend it doesn't matter. Like, to be an economist is to pretend that doesn't matter. This is the correlative relationship between debt and professional economics. It does not matter.
Because now we're talking about trillions and we've lost sight of what a trillion is. If we had this same type of debt 20, 30 years ago, it would have fucking made people's heads explode. Yes. But over a period of time, it happens, I'm going to say slowly enough. We just accept it. But now it's happening at a pace that's not slowly anymore. It's much quicker. $1 trillion every 100 days. Soon it's going to be every 90 days and every 80. Then that number, you just look at that chart, it's just parabolic. What happens at that point?
Vibes are going to be heading lower. I'll tell you that. It's not going to be all-time high vibes. The party of joy and soy is not going to be able to win an election on the back of vibes if this continues. They can't cut rates.
I know. They can't cut rates in an environment that they're going to have inflation, the rate of change go up. They're going to have to raise rates, and then you're going to be back to square one. People are going to be suffering because there's going to be less debt that could be accumulated, so businesses won't be spending as much and borrowing as much to try to grow, and then getting into homes will be more costly. And
so do you think, Glenn, not to cut you off, but do you think if you were renewing a mortgage in, let's say...
in Canada.
Yeah, February, all right? Let's say they cut every month until February, so you get the rate down to, I guess it'd be like 3.5 at that point, something like that.
Whatever.
Do you think you would lock in for 5 years at 3.5? Or would you go variable with the expectation that things keep going lower? It sounds to me like you're at least thinking that there's potential for inflation to really kick back up and rates fly upward again over the next 5 years, instead of kind of sitting in the lower bound.
I'm going to have to make this decision soon because January, I think mine comes.
Really?
Soon. Yeah.
Live stream your visit to the bank.
No.
Can you imagine walking into the office with your phone running and a wireless mic? Friends and enemies. You know what? Len here. We're at the bank.
I went to the bank this past week, and it was the first time I stepped in the bank in a long time.
Yeah.
Is because I wasn't able to withdraw cash. So I had to go there, and they had to set up my account. It's just so fucked up.
Yeah.
But it's the first time I should have live streamed that whole event, because me in the bank just doesn't really work that well.
I've been to the bank with you a few times when we were setting up our
but it's been a long time. That's been
corporation here. Yeah.
A few years.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the last time I stepped into a bank.
That was when I still had my Achilles boot on. I'm pretty sure the first time I went with you.
So I haven't stepped into bank in a few years.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be a few years before I step into
So we'll
bank
see. We
again.
got people in the chat saying by 2025 they would lock in. P-Man, Boom Dust. It's 2025. We got to lock in. I'm not sure what I'll do, honestly. I don't have I think I'm on a blended because I moved. I'm pretty sure when I renew, if the rate is under 4%, I'll probably lock in.
It will be under 4% by the time.
I'll probably lock in. Well, and you know what, Len? I may even say to the bank, I'll lock in for 10 if you give it to me at 5%.
Throw in a pen. We got a deal.
I need a pen and a t-shirt. T-shirt is always the price,
t-shirt,
right? Yeah. Always have to get t-shirts.
BMO or TD Bank or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to probably put that on this.
I locked my mortgage for 10 years and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
CBP, we got to go back to Chicago. It's been a while since we've been. It's been a week, I guess. But
yeah, 7 days.
We've read stories about people making claims in Chicago. If you call the police, you could take up to an hour or plus for cops to show up. And maybe some of the reason for this, because the workforce, they're just stretched thin. Because apparently a chunk of the police force is assigned to, guess who? Mayor Brandon Johnson's personal.
He is. Detail. This guy's balling. This guy is just a fucking sponge for content for us. Incredible.
So apparently the number, like the overall workforce, 1.25% of all sworn officers are assigned to Mayor Johnson's personal police detail. So former Chicago Police Lieutenant John Garrido came out this past week, and he recommended that the city consider giving up 100 of the 142 officers that are assigned to the security detail, so that way they can improve public safety and so forth. 142 officers that are just assigned him. That's interesting. I'm not sure if that's par for the course for every other big city, but compared to the previous mayor, gosh, I forget her name now. She actually had a lesser amount of cops that were assigned to her police detail. So it's gone up, like everything, inflation, everything goes up. So he has more people assigned to him, police assigned to him, than the previous mayor. What was her name? She was an interesting fellow.
Beetlejuice, yeah. Lori Lightfoot.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess to her credit, she had less people that were assigned to her, less police officers that were assigned to her in comparison. Either way, 1.25% of all cops sworn are with Mayor Brandon Johnson.
I'm looking for some Chicago cop to pop ratio stuff, but it's not easily accessible. In Hamilton, the cop to pop ratio is accessible through the sergeant's or police chief, I should say, his annual report when he proposes his budget to City Hall. He has to do a slide deck, and it's very well attended in person and online because it's trendy at the moment to hate police officers, though.
Oh, we have a Chicago resident here.
Oh, good. Who is it? Let's see. Chicago resident here, striking, DYOR media.
We got to get some boots in the ground. What's going on over there?
We need to know. Ask Brandon what he paid for a haircut last week. Okay, so I'm trying to find some Chicago cop to pop. You should be like, I think in the 500 or so range, something like that, 500 or 1,000. I forget exactly what the number is. So for every 1,000 people in your city, you should have one cop, basically. And I don't know what Chicago is, but presumably it's hard to keep that number at the correct ratio as crime is going up for two reasons. One, as crime goes up, generally it means more criminals show up in town. And two, as crime goes up, it means less people want to be cops. So why would this guy take 1%? He said 1% of the force for his
1.25%,
for his own personal detail. Like, I mean, presumably you're sleeping 7 hours, 6 hours a night as the mayor, maybe not that often or not that much. You're in City Hall
while you're sleeping.
Yeah, but like City Hall doesn't need additional protection. Like presumably City Hall is protected anyway, right? So like you don't need a guy walking with you while you're at work at City Hall, unless you never work at City Hall.
Do you remember Rob Ford used to drive himself?
Yeah, because he was a man of the people. People say that guy. people say that guy wasn't popular, but like it's hard to argue with some of the stuff he did. His brother's the same way. His brother's like out there all the time doing shit at stores, is going to go stations. Like you can say you don't like the guy, but he's popular. Google police recruiting classes in Chicago. Listen, buddy, my sanity is already at like run pretty thin. Maybe I'll do that for next week, but I can just imagine what the hell's going on over there. I don't know, Len. Do you think that Brandon's gonna, change this policy based on the comments of a former police sergeant, chief, whatever. I doubt it.
You know what? I'd love to know if the mayor was supportive of the defund the police back in the day. I'm curious to know if
Lightfoot wasn't. I don't think they can't be over there. It's a war zone.
I don't know.
Iraq.
I don't know, but to her credit, again, I just keep going back to it. She had less people assigned, and it wasn't all that rosy at that time. It's been pretty tough. So, whatever, it is what it is. Good for her and good for him. Like, you know, he's living a good, living a good. Joey, let's move north. Let's go to Canada, and because we're already 20 minutes in. I'm not sure if we talked about this story. I'm not sure if we did. Like, we may have. But if we did, it certainly deserves a revisit. The province of Nova Scotia, and they're building what the Nova Scotian government has called the Pallet Village.
This is nuts.
In Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, specifically the West Fall area. And I don't know if, like, Pallet Village, does it have a lot of cachet to it? They should have given it like Palais Village or something.
I think that they wanted to ride the coattails of the famous Pokemon City Pallet Town, but Pallet Village just doesn't really.
I like Palais Village.
Palais Village, yeah.
You kind of, Billionaires Row. She like Palais Village. I like that. But not trying to make fun of it. That's pretty shit, because what they're doing over there, they're constructing in Pallet Village 41 pallet homes. This is not Sunnyvale boom dust. This is like, it makes the size of these homes. It's just like, I've seen bathrooms that are bigger than this. Each home is 76 square feet. That's it. And from the outside, it shows a good visual at how big that is. That's basically from wall to wall. They're very, very tiny, Joey. So in conjunction with
Hang on a minute. You're telling me this woman here, her name is what, Len?
I wouldn't even have a clue.
Come on.
Senora Large.
Deborah Large, the manager of Tiny Meadows. This has got to be like, again, are we in a simulation here? We got an oversized woman named Deborah Large presiding over, she's the queen of this tiny meadow shelter village. This can't be real life. It can't be.
Let's just move on.
I mean, Len, come on. Like, what? This is nuts.
There's more to this too, because not only is this 41 pallet homes being constructed, in conjunction with that, there are housing options that they are providing for 35 Black and African Nova Scotians in a project dubbed the Aquaba Reverend Wallace Smith Senior Campus.
This is going to be you are like entering into the Hall of Fame of not laughing during some of the stuff you say on this show. So, if you're able to keep a straight face for the next 15 minutes.
I'll try, man. For that project, the government is forking out $2.3 million annually for operating costs, staffing, wraparound services, supportive programs, and building leases. So there's two different things. We have the 35 pallet homes that they're setting up, and the 35 housing options. The housing options they're providing for 35 Black and African Nova Scotians, as per the Nova Scotian government webpage. Like, this makes the trailer park homes look huge by comparison. And the goals of these two projects are to help transition people to more permanent housing. And I fear this may become permanent housing.
You got that right.
So I'm looking at this. We've talked about, was it trailers, like actual This is like a trailer almost.
We talked about a guy renting a campsite. We talked about a guy living on a cruise. And now we're talking about a guy living on a pallet in a pallet house in Pallet Village, Tiny Meadows Pallet Village. It's just big enough to use the drugs you got from your safe supply vendor. I'll tell you that. I mean, what can you say about this? My Instagram algo feeds me these videos of this Chinese woman who always starts her videos with "Hello, Balsa," and she sells 38 square meter aluminum, the way she says it, trailers. And I went on Amazon and went to the website one time just to see, like, why am I getting fed these ads? And then I noticed last week, maybe, or on the weekend, I forget, I got an ad from that company and it said, "Hello, Balsa, aluminum trailer shipped to Canada." Like, they know that there's a market for these things in Canada, the $30,000 aluminum trailer home, right? Well, why is there a market for them? Well, because people are living in stuff like this. Like we're building this stuff on government land, presumably, and charging the taxpayer for it. Now, I'm not saying this is not better than tents. It is better than tents, of course. It's safer than tents. It gives people a little bit of privacy. And with privacy comes the chance for self-reflection and things like this that I think can lead to good outcomes. But, on the whole, the bigger picture is that, like you said, what is the plan to make sure these are not permanent residences for these people? I don't see one. The article on CBC doesn't have one. And I've yet to see a real strategy, a pipeline for people to go from the pallet home to a home of their own or an apartment of their own or a permanent job or a permanent community. I haven't seen anything like that. And so I just wonder what's the intention here? The intention may be pure, but without a plan, you're really doing a disservice to not only people living here, but the people who are paying for it via their taxes, instead of paying for things like healthcare, instead of paying for things like education, instead of paying for things like road work or other infrastructure. These are difficult things to talk about. And I'll tell you what else, as infrastructure crumbles, what you will find is that people with, beliefs that are niche, they're harder to support. And people are more willing to let things fall by the wayside that maybe they weren't 5 years ago. Because they want to see things improve. And if healthcare and education are crumbling, it's not going to be a lot of support for, pallet shanty towns on the outskirts of your city, even if they're needed. This is the cost of doing business. This is the cost of decades and decades of poor monetary policy, bad politics, and the cocktail of mistakes that those things produced when they were stirred together. So, that's where we are. I hope it gets better. I think it'll get worse before it gets better. But in the meantime, we'll just talk about it on the show, have a laugh, shed a tear, and move on.
Go on Amazon, just type in modular home.
Yeah, it's going to be the Etong house, I bet.
I'm looking at it right now, and Canadian dollars as low as 7,000, and you see a bunch up to like 25, 26. So this is the way things are going to move forward. Is to slap down a slab of concrete
100%.
and just put one of these guys on, and away you go. Like, what the fuck? Like, a good gust of wind, could just pick this guy up, and it's sad. And it's like you're saying, it's probably going to be the norm moving forward. But
yeah,
StatsCan for the month of August, for the second quarter, they showed that Canada's economy grew at a faster clip than expected. So in Q2, it went faster, grew faster than expected. So annualized, it grew 2.1%, and it was above the 1.5 to 1.6. That was the number that was expected by economists and the thinking heads. The second quarter growth, though, was led by government expenditure.
Shocker.
And also, they're saying increased business investments and consumer spending was higher on services, according to StatsCan. So the consumer spending is higher because inflation is higher. Everything goes up. So you have to pay for a plumber. It's obviously going to be more. And so that's probably how it's being captured. Anyways, according to the CBC article that I have, they said the government spending can be attributed to higher wages for public employees and with an increase in hours worked across all levels of government. And look, I'm not an economist. I'm just some dude in the basement, and what the fuck do I know? But government spending leading the way, I don't think it's a long-term solution for moving the economy. If maybe one quarter, fine, maybe two, but if it's for a bunch of successive quarters, really, I don't know if that's what you really want to see. But hey, again, I'm just some guy in a basement. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
What could go wrong with 50, 60, 70% of the population relying on government for their income? Also, are we growing on a per capita basis?
I don't know.
We're not. 7 out of the last 8 quarters, we've gone downward in per capita basis. So for people who say that things are good, they're not. For people who say, look, the G7 this, G7 that, no. People who say, oh, the IMF said this, IMF said that, no. Per capita is your overall quality of life. If that's going down, then your situation is headed the wrong direction. It's worsening. There's a lot of consequences for policies like mass immigration and currency debasement and avoiding energy production, even though we're like producing more natural gas than we ever have here. But I digress. Financializing real estate instead of putting that money into productive assets. The guys on Looney Hour do a good job covering this. Rich Diaz, especially, friend of the show, who's very passionate about this topic. There's consequences for this. And anytime I hear someone say that we're, high in GDP, I always just assume 100% of the time correctly, by the way, that we're down in per capita GDP, which is the only metric that matters. That's the one that matters. Everything else is secondary. And people are going to start finding this out in Canada sooner rather than later, because there's going to be more of these little pallet towns popping up, even as GDP is great, right? Even as the economy is booming, even as policies are allowing for the Bank of Canada to cut rates. I'm not sure that that's the hill I'd be dying on personally, because oftentimes that's not the case. We see cuts when economic data is softening. And so you can tell me that the data is improving and that we're doing well, but what I actually see on the other side of the coin, where rubber is meeting the road, is that steps are being taken to protect us as we come crashing down to the runway here. And I'll tell you, Len, the seatbelt sign is still on for sure. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Canada is reporting unemployment for the month of August stands at 6.6%. And it's been 7 years since this number has been this high in quote unquote a normal year. During the early 2020, 2021, obviously unemployment shot up way higher than that. So you have to kind of throw those numbers out the door. Yeah. So without taking those into consideration, it's been 7 years since we had unemployment at 6.6%. And the Bank of Canada has to date already lowered rates 3 times this year. The past few months, in fact, and each time was 25 basis points. So the latest news may fuel them to do a 50 basis points cut next time they decide to do this. And with Canada now putting the brakes on temporary foreign workers, so we've talked about that at length last week, and they're also stopping the issuing of student visas, or slowing that down at least. It's going to take time for that to feel effective, but theoretically, over a long enough period of time, the unemployment rate should drop, because those categories, the people that fill those categories, are going to be dwindling in numbers. So another metric to consider too is that the average hourly wage growth for permanent employees, they're showing signs that it's starting to slow down.
That's brutal. What a time for that. That is just terrible timing. It's
not a huge drop. It's went from 5.2% in July to 4.9% in August. But if the trend continues, it's going to make lowering rates much more attractive. But then, the debt, trying to service it, and blah, blah, blah. The Bank of Canada, they're put in a tough position. They're going to be painted themselves into a corner. So that magical 2% that they're trying to achieve, and I don't even know why 2%.
They're not trying to achieve it anymore. They care about employment more than they do about inflation. This is the case in all the big modern economies. Big. I mean, Canada's like, whatever, top 15 or top 20.
Isn't that one of the mandates though for the central banks?
It is in the States. It's not here. It's different here. No, it's different here. I'm pretty sure. Someone can correct me on that if I'm wrong. The States has the explicit 2-prong mandate, but I think here we're a little different.
I'm going to take a peek, but next month, I think, or in 2 months, is the next time they're going to be meeting and releasing information for the rate cut. By the way, the Bank of Canada's mandate is to promote the economic and financial welfare of Canada.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so it's part of their mandate. So it's defined in the Bank of Canada Act. So
it's nice really, and vague. You can do
it is
their job, something in between, something else. Who knows, right?
Fuck, these central banks, like, you break it down, what the heck are they? They're just there to create money, and it doesn't make sense. And
they make the creation of money easier or harder through the rate lever. And like, I don't know what else to say to people who think that the central banking thing is a good idea.
If you go back a couple of 100 years and tell somebody this, like somebody that has an idea to grasp all this, what the fuck is going on? But because we were born and it's just been ingrained, when you go to the store and you drop a $5 and to buy something, it's just, that $5 has some fucking value to it, and you're able to buy a pack of gum or what the fuck you buy with $5 these days. But that's what it is, because we are born in the environment. It's like an inherent right that we understand it. If we're using this money, and it's just, that's the way it is. And the central bank's the one that administers it, creates it, destroys it, whatever the fuck they want to do with it. it doesn't seem like right. I mean, that's why Bitcoin, man. That's why
It's so true. It's so true. Boom dust in the chat. Bank of Canada can't really do much to fight inflation right now. We're in fiscal dominance territory. I agree. Kevin Muir and I talked about this, and although we had some disagreements on the sort of details, I think everyone thinks we're in fiscal dominance now. You know, the Bank of Canada can't fight spending programs. They just can't. They can't fight deficit-based governments. They can't fight currencies that are not based on any sound backing. Nothing they can do. Central banks are a relic of a time when that stuff was possible. But now, as in all previous cases where democracy was tried, governments try and buy votes with money that they don't have. And what did Margaret Thatcher say, Len? Eventually the problem is you run out of other people's money to spend. So that's the direction we're headed. I think anyway, it seems to me that that's the case.
Not sure if you saw this one, but somebody on Reddit posted something interesting. And it's someone in Canada who claimed to be a new grad from mechanical engineering.
Huh.
And he said that he was offered a job at $45,000 Canadian starting salary. And the poster explains that he has 2 years of co-op and internship experience and some lab/research experience. So it's not like some paper champion. This guy has some real life skills. He went through
mechanical engineering that's a legit stream.
He's got that ring on that pinky. So
yeah, exactly.
This person, like I mentioned, was offered a position starting salary of $45K. So assuming that there's some massive upward mobility, I expect that in this type of field. But a story like this makes me wonder how many people will read this and hear this, digest this. People, this guy went to university 4 to 5 years, did his internship, all this shit. And he's making slightly more than somebody working at Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Plus,
less than McDonald's. McDonald's has a poster up near my place, I think for $24 an hour to be a manager. So that'd be 48,000, right? Plus, I think McDonald's has benefits and a bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah. So it's, if you add it all together.
Should have been a burger flipping engineer.
Mm-hmm. So this just highlights, I don't think this is systemic and it's representative of every mechanical engineer, but it just goes to show you the economy, how tough it is, but also how difficult it is for young folks out there to this guy or gal, I'm not sure what it is, but either way, he's got to pay for his roof over his head,
for sure,
food to go in his belly, and he's got to drive to and from work with $45K, man. That's tough to fucking do. Now he's got, I assume, debt that he has to pay back from schooling. I'm not sure if you add this all together, man, it's fucking tough for young folks. I feel bad for them.
Pretty crazy, eh? Like it's not like this is again, you and me are doing the show every week, so we see this, but I think when you talk to people about this, they view it as like a hypothetical, right? Like people are working, there are people out there who are getting mechanical engineering degrees, who are getting offered jobs for 45,000. And I think folks who don't see it are often assuming that this is, an imagined scenario or something you saw online. In this case, it's Reddit, but a lot of people post proof. I mean, there was famously that guy a few weeks ago who was saying that he was applying for jobs everywhere, and he was also an engineer, I think. Right. And then eventually he got a job, but he applied for like 700 jobs and got like 3 calls back or something like that.
Fuck all. Yeah. Yeah. That's an amazingly bad, return rate.
Bad sign. And there was a job fair at the convention center on the weekend too in Toronto, 17,000 attendees, 17,000. Can you imagine that?
And so I'm wondering how many of that 17,000 are part of the student visa / temporary foreign worker
80%
class.
It looks like in the line.
Maybe
I'm generalizing there big time, but
that number over time, as I mentioned, it's going to start dwindling. It may take a few years, but because they put the brakes to these programs.
Yeah, but they're putting the again, like I just said this to a buddy of mine today. They're putting the brakes to the programs, but it doesn't mean that these bodies are just going to disappear.
No, right? It takes a long time for that to dwindle down.
I actually don't think it's going to dwindle at all. Like I think you're just going to change that to this is a new Canadian resident, or this is a permanent or whatever, right? Like they'll become Canadians. They'll still be here looking for jobs, and we just don't have the jobs. We just don't have them. We don't need that sort of. Again, I feel terrible saying this because these are people too, and they deserve a chance. But we just can't. We can't be the dumping ground for everyone who wants a better life. That's at the end of the day the fact of the matter. We live in a world where resources are scarce. Those resources may be human, they may be commodity, they may be employment opportunities, but everything has its limits. And to pretend that they don't, there's not much there's not much you can say to people who just think that we can do everything for everyone, right? And at some point, the modern world has to accept this and come up with a better solution than come on over, we'll build you a pallet house. Like that can't be the fix. It can't be. It just simply cannot be the case.
I think that's it, Joey.
Wow.
40 minutes like that.
Time to watch the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is on TV tonight, buddy. The Achilles ayahuasca champion.
Is he playing for the Jets still?
He's playing for the Jets. Alex Puya, who works for Bull Bitcoin. Him and I have an ongoing football / other DMs because we have a lot of common interests that the rest of you guys don't share. So he was telling me today, this is the beginning of the Jets Super Bowl season. Do you have thoughts on that?
Nothing.
Okay.
I don't know. Remember the last time they had hopes of winning the Super Bowl last year, and then they're
4 plays into the season, Achilles tear. Yeah.
And 25 years ago, the same thing happened.
Testaverde?
It was like one of the first series of the. I mean, I'm not sure if it was their first series, but it was the first game. It was the first quarter, and you got it. Like it just seems funny that the same type of injury it was the Achilles.
P-Man Van saying the same thing.
All right, JT, that's so let's see if they could do it. I mean, I don't give a rat's ass to be honest.
It's fun.
I can't name one player besides Aaron Rodgers, and I don't even know if he's any good anymore. I have
he might be. I beat Boomdust in our week 1 matchup thanks to Jameson Williams' heroics last night on the
not
Detroit.
Jameson Lopp, right?
Not Jameson Lopp. No, actually, they're quite different, the two of them. But anyway, neither here nor there. Come back later this week for an interview show with someone. Remains to be seen. Maybe we'll get the
Lions in the Super Bowl. That's like, am I reading this right?
Lions could be good. They're a good team. They got a lot of firepower.
What universe am I living in? That there's a chance that the Detroit Lions can.
I don't know. I just got a message from Alex. That's a professional offense. So I don't know if he means that I just offended him or if he's watching the game. But we're gonna wrap this up because I want to go watch it too, and I have to edit this show at the same time. God bless you. We'll see you this week for an unknown interview show. And until the next time we talk, take care of yourselves.
Don't be a cuck.